Two men, same stage, same crowd, same moment in history. One spoke for 2 hours, one spoke for 2 minutes. One is completely forgotten, one changed history forever. Welcome to History I Just Learned, the husband and wife duo learning about history as we go and discovering the human lessons behind it. Okay, sweetie, my wife right here who doesn't want to show up in camera right now.
Not yet.
Sweetie, I have a question for you. Has anyone ever made you feel that you were not good enough?
Yes, when I started working at my current job, people didn't take me seriously because since I was new and young and I didn't have the experience, they wouldn't call me when there was a problem. They would call like the person who they thought knew more than I did. But at the end of the day, learning experience.
Yes. Well, for me, it's when I was coming up as a drummer in church, and I always wanted the opportunity to play in these big events that we usually have. And I remember my friend finally gave me the chance, and I sit down, I start playing. I'm so excited. I'm enjoying myself, playing along with everybody as a band. And then one of the leaders comes from the crowd all the way to stage and physically removes me from the drum set.
Oh
And
my God.
yes, and asks me to step away and brings my friend back to play. I felt crushed. I felt so embarrassed, so disrespected, and kind of I used that. We'll talk about how I used it, but I used that event. I used that moment for something else later. But I think most of us have felt like this at some point. Overlooked for a promotion, dismissed in a meeting, treated like the afterthought. Like what you bring to the table does not matter. Like someone else is always more qualified, more experienced, more deserving. And it crushes you sometimes. The question is for you guys, have you had that moment too? So before I get into anything, stay with me for a second. I want you to actually feel like you're there. Picture this. It's November 1863. Cold, that kind of cold that settles into your coat, into your face, into your shoulders. And you're standing there in a field in Pennsylvania. And as far as you can see, in every direction, there are graves, simple wooden markers, row after row after row. 50,000 men died here 4 months ago in 3 days. And today, thousands of people have come to stand in this field and dedicate it as a cemetery. There are two speakers today. The first is the most famous public speaker in all America. He stands up and speaks for 2 full hours, and the crowd is completely captivated for every single minute of it. Then the second speaker it stands up. He puts his glasses on. He takes out one single piece of paper and he speaks for 2 minutes. Nobody, and I mean nobody, remembers what the first man said. His 2 hours are basically gone from history. But those 2 minutes, quoted by presidents, carved into monuments, taught to every school child in America for 160 years. 2 hours completely forgotten, 2 minutes that last forever. What is your reaction to that?
If I'm the person who's speaking for 2 minutes, I probably feel embarrassed and also not prepared
Yeah.
because, this guy just set the bar for 2 hours. Now there I come with my 2 minutes. And I probably feel embarrassed to go on stage because after that, and what I'm about to say is just 2 minutes. It's just kind of.
Yeah. And that's exactly how he felt, but after. Because the man who gives those 2 minutes, he sits back down and tells his friend, that speech felt like a wet blanket. Nobody felt it. He walks away from the most important speech ever given in American history, thinking he completely let everyone down. He's so wrong in the most beautiful, most human way possible. So today, that is what we're doing. We're going to that field. We're going to meet the two men. We're going to hear those 2 minutes, word by word, and figure out together why those words have lasted 160 years. Let's go. So, just enough background so this all makes sense. It is 1863. America is in the middle of the Civil War. The country is fighting itself, North against South, and the cause at the center of all of it is slavery. Approximately 4 million human beings in the southern states are legally considered property. Not people, property. And the entire economy of the South is built on this foundation. While Lincoln is elected in 1860, the southern states see him as a threat. One by one, they leave the Union. They form the Confederacy. And on April 12, 1861, the Civil War begins. And in the summer of 1863, the bloodiest battle of the entire war is fought in a small Pennsylvania town called Gettysburg. 3 days, over 160,000 soldiers, 50,000 dead, wounded, or missing in one town with a small population of 2,400 people. Churches become hospitals, schools become hospitals, private homes become hospitals, and someone has to figure out what to do with all the dead. A local attorney named David Wills organizes the effort to turn part of that battlefield into a proper military cemetery. He plans a dedication ceremony for November 19th, 1863. He reaches out first to the greatest public speaker in America, a man named Edward Everett. Everett says yes immediately. Then Wills writes a second letter to the White House to President Abraham Lincoln. And the phrasing of that letter is something I keep coming back to. He asks the president, and these are his exact words, to offer a few appropriate remarks in his capacity as chief executive. A few appropriate remarks. After the real speech, like a footnote at the bottom of a page. The President of the United States, invited last, asked to speak after the real speaker. How would that make you feel?
If I'm the president, probably undermine because although I deserve some sort of respect, but just to be like the period at the end of the event is just kind of
Disrespectful.
yeah, disrespectful. The most famous president, the most famous, person gets just the last words. It's just kind of like, oh, okay, I guess.
Yeah. I would feel the same way. But Lincoln was a bigger person, you know? Lincoln upsets. He prepares carefully. Whatever the committee thinks of his role, he's going to show up and say something real. But the whole structure of that day still treats him as the footnote. 2 minutes after 2 hours, a period at the end of someone else's sentence. What nobody knows yet, not the crowd, not the committee, not even Lincoln himself, is what those 2 minutes are about to become. So let's talk about these two men, because the contrast between them is one of my favorite parts of this whole story. In 1863, if you ask any educated American who is the greatest public speaker alive, almost every single one of them gives you the same answer without hesitating. Edward Everett. He was a former senator, former Secretary of State, former governor of Massachusetts, former president of Harvard University, doctorate from one of the finest universities in the world in Germany, one of the most accomplished men in all of America. And when he speaks, people travel from hours away just to be in the room. Here's the detail I love. Everett asked the organizing committee to postpone the entire ceremony because he needs more time to prepare. And they say yes. They rescheduled the event for tens of thousands of people because Edward Everett needs more time. So if you are organizing this event and you are Edward Everett saying yes, how much thought are you giving to anyone else on that program?
Probably I'm just thinking about myself. Because, like, if I'm the person who they look up to, I'm the person who pretty much have this fame, I'm not really thinking much about anyone else but myself.
Not even the president.
Exactly. Like, I come before the president, so, I matter more than he does.
And that's exactly how Lincoln was treated. He is asked last, given 2 minutes, described as a few appropriate remarks, and Lincoln does not fight it. He does not complain. He just prepares and shows up. November 19th, morning, cold. Between 15,000 and 20,000 people gather at the cemetery grounds. Everett steps forward, and he speaks for 2 hours and 7 minutes. Thundering, masterful. He describes the battle in vivid detail. He weeps at certain times, and the crowd weeps with him. By every account, it's a masterpiece. Long sustained applause, and a hymn is sung after, and then the crowd settles. After 2 hours of the greatest speaker in America, what do you think the crowd is expecting from the man invited to give a few appropriate remarks?
I feel they're not expecting much, but I think they're expecting something. Because even though, the greatest speaker just spoke for 2 hours, you want to hear what the president has to say about what's going on because
Right.
you're responsible for everything that is going on. So they probably were just looking at him like, okay, what is he going to say about what is currently going on?
And I think it would put even more pressure
Yes.
after the 2
Not
hours.
only because, let's hear the speech, but let's see what he has to say about what happened here and the whole situation that we have going on at the moment.
Right. And then the President of the United States, it's introduced. The afterthought, the footnote, Abraham Lincoln stands up. Lincoln walks to the podium, 6 feet 4 inches tall, black suit, but running a mild fever today. He will later be diagnosed with a mild form of smallpox. He's tired in a way that goes deeper than sleep can fix. He has been carrying this broken, bleeding country for 2.5 years. He puts on his glasses. He reaches into his coat and takes out one single page of paper. Just one page. He looks at the crowd and the rows and rows of graves stretching out behind them, and he begins. 77 years ago, our fathers brought forth on this continent a new nation, conceived in liberty and dedicated to the proposition that all men are created equal. 87 years. He counts back to 1776, not the Constitution, the Declaration, to the words all men are created equal. He starts there on purpose. That choice tells you exactly where this speech is going. Now, we are engaged in a great civil war, testing whether that nation or any nation so conceived and so dedicated can long endure. He does not say we are fighting to keep the country together. He says this war is a test of whether the idea of a country built on equality can actually survive on this earth. We are met on a great battlefield of that war. We have come to dedicate a portion of that field as a final resting place for those who here gave their lives that that nation might live. It is altogether fitting and proper that we should do this. But in a large sense, we cannot dedicate, we cannot consecrate, we cannot hallow this ground. The brave men, living and dead, who struggled here, have consecrated it far above our poor power to act or detract. He's standing up to give a speech, and he says no speech can truly honor this ground. Only what the soldiers did here with their lives can do that. The man everyone treated as the afterthought, standing there with more humility than the greatest orator in America managed in 2 hours. The world will little note nor long remember what we say here, but it can never forget what they did here. He says the world will not remember what anyone says here today in the speech that will be remembered forever. He has absolutely no idea what those words are about to become. It is for us, the living, brother, to be dedicated here to the unfinished work which they who fought here have thus far so nobly advanced. It is rather for us to be here dedicated to the great task remaining before us, that from this honored dead we take increased devotion to that cause for which they gave the last full measure of devotion, that we here highly resolve that this dead shall not have died in vain, that this nation under God shall have a new birth of freedom, and the government of the people, by the people, for the people, shall not perish from this earth. 2 minutes, 272 words, and then he folds his paper and sits back down. The applause is scattered, uncertain. Some people are not even sure he's finished. Lincoln leans over to his friend and says, "That speech won't score. It didn't work. It didn't land. He thinks he said nothing worth remembering." That night, he boards the train back to Washington, feverish, exhausted, convinced he let everyone down. But here is what is happening while Lincoln rides the train home. Journalists are looking back to what they wrote. Editors across the country are reading the words that came in over the telegraph wire. And slowly, quietly at first, people begin to realize that something unusual just happened in that field. That those 2 minutes contained something that 2 hours before them did not have. Papers start reprinting the speech. Letters begin arriving at the White House. And the very next morning, Edward Everett sits down and writes Lincoln a letter, the greatest orator in America, and he says this: "I should be glad if I could flatter myself that I came as near to the central idea of the occasion in 2 hours as you did in 2 minutes." The greatest public speaker in America saying that to the man everyone treated as an afterthought. So why does it last? Why do 272 words survive 160 years when Everett's 2 hours masterpiece is almost completely forgotten? Because Lincoln did not let how he was treated determine the quality of his work. He was the footnote. He was the few appropriate remarks at the end of someone else's sentence. And he could have treated it that way. He could have phoned it in. He could have given a polite, forgettable 2 minutes that nobody would have remembered, and nobody would have blamed him for it. Instead, he prepared as if it was the most important speech of his life, because to him it was. He studied the moment. He chose every word carefully. He brought his absolute best work to a room that had already decided he did not matter. That is not just showing up. That is excellence in the face of being dismissed. That is refusing to let someone else's low expectation become your standard. And that is exactly why they were wrong. Lincoln never gets to see what those 2 minutes become. He is assassinated on April 14th, 1865, just 5 days after the Civil War ends. He dies the next morning. He never knows what his words mean to every generation that comes after him. He just stands up on a cold morning, treated as a footnote over 50,000 graves, says what he believes as honestly as he can, and sits back down thinking nobody believed it, nobody felt it, thinking that he failed. The leader who removed me from that stage made me the drummer I became. Saida's boss or colleagues who overlooked her made her indispensable. And the committee who invited Lincoln last as the afterthought with a few appropriate remarks made him immortal. Lincoln was the afterthought. He was handed 2 minutes after 2 hours, invited last, treated as the footnote, and he did not fight it. He did not complain. He just prepared, showed up, and gave everything he had. Your rejection is not your ending. It can be your fuel. The moment someone dismisses you is the moment you decide what you're really made of. Lincoln's committee, who treated him as a footnote, made him immortal. So, if they make you the afterthought, make them remember you anyway. Imagine for a second someone overlooks you today, dismisses you, treats you like the footnote, and instead of shrinking, you prepare. You show up. You give everything you have. That is the life on the other side of being dismissed. Lincoln showed us it is possible. We are trying to live it too in this podcast, one episode at a time. Lincoln stood up as the afterthought. He sat down having changed history. Maybe the same is true for you. Remember, if they make you the afterthought, make them remember you anyway. Guys, thank you for listening. Please give us a 5-star review and listen to us every Monday. We'll see you next time.
Bye bye.